these questions, everybody's like, well, I know what he's going to say. Well, it is the truth. Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the damn game, the damn season on Monday night. And welcome to this week's special edition of the 941 Sports Zone here from Douglas Jeep. And Francis Haynes is sitting with me right now. Francis is normally on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, it's a little bit different sitting over here, but I like it.
And so the reason for that is that we had to, like all great media people, we had to adapt today.
Absolutely.
So sometimes things don't go the way you hope they're going to go. And but we'll be back on track next week for sure. So we had to kind of do a little something different. We have sort of done 23 shows now.
Yeah, this will be episode 23.
23. Okay, so 23 shows, and along the way, while our audience is not worldwide, it's nationwide.
Okay.
In some cases, and it also has a lot of folks who have a interest in what we do.
You know, it kind of makes me want to go look at the analytics now. I bet we are worldwide.
It could be.
I bet there's somebody out there in like Asia or Europe watching this.
And so along those lines, got folks who are maybe not camera friendly or they're shy of around a camera or whatever it may be, are sort of like, hey, you know, I would love to be there to this or ask a question or whatever it may be. And right now, it's like because we're taping these shows, we really can't have a live audience to kind of have that opportunity to have live questions. So
I got a whole list here that you came in with.
So now, okay, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to ask Johnny questions regarding what's going on in the current, out there in the sports world currently, both local, or I shouldn't say both. We'll go local, state, national, and if there's a question from somewhere in the world, we can answer that question too. But a lot of those questions some are going to be entertaining, some are going to be multi-layered, some are going to be linking into each other for certain, because there are a lot of things right now that are very hot topics. We'll link them all together if we can. But nonetheless, we'll get a good idea, a taste or a feel for what people out there in the sports world, the fan, are kind of interested in regards to what we're doing here locally and what's going on around the country. But before we start that, we want to make sure we recap last week's episode.
Absolutely. And I also want to say before we get to these questions, even though we produce this show and everything, I'm not always the most up-to-date on sports stuff. I got a lot of things going on. If it doesn't have a Dolphins emblem on it, I honestly probably don't know what's going on with it. So bear with me on some of these questions. I'll try to keep in the loop with it. But
yeah, and by the way, if there's something that looks a little wonky, I'll try to guide you through it a little
Sounds
bit.
good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
But last week we had Forrest Lamp on our show, former Venice high school football player, former Western Kentucky Hilltopper, and former NFL player as well. Played for the Chargers, played for the Buffalo Bills, and played for the New Orleans Saints. And Forrest, it was a very interesting conversation because, all the layers and all the time and effort that's put into becoming an NFL football player, sometimes, I don't want to say it's overlooked, but maybe it's not as, as clear as to what they have to do. And his journey ended up with a 6-year career in the NFL. And I think that, outside of the injuries that he sort of detailed while he was here, I think that the journey for him was a great one, because you can see in the way he described out things, you saw it too, that it's disappointing that he's not playing football anymore.
It is. I mean, just the brief time I got to talk with him, he's just one of those people you talk to and you can just instantly tell, man, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Really well-rounded, good people person. It definitely seems like a good family guy. You guys were talking, or they were talking about a foundation.
Yep.
Just seems like a really good person. So
yeah.
I like seeing that in, anybody, but let alone an NFL player, because, sometimes there's a stigma around that.
A lot of times that focus, for a guy who had to grind his way through it. He was not, a highly recruited kid as a young player at Venice High School. Kind of had to earn his way to be recruited. Goes to a mid-level school at Western Kentucky, program has done very well over the years, had great coaching, but had to earn his way through that, and then have performed very well. And then again, got a chance to get drafted pretty high. I mean, when you're in the top of the second round, you're a player. You're a really good player.
Yeah, no, definitely. I actually had to go look at some of his highlights after that podcast, and I was like, yeah, no, he's good. I felt bad when you guys were talking about the Dolphins and the Challengers game.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even realize at that moment like that's who he was playing for.
Yeah. No, so he's definitely he's definitely. But again, the things that he went through as far as injuries were kind of tough.
Chargers.
Yes, I know.
Chargers. Yeah.
I know exactly where you were headed. That's fine.
No. The ch sound. But yeah, you got it.
So he was. But again, it was a great guest. Really look forward to having him again. Again, with his foundation, once he gets it really rolling, we'll have him back on again. We'll try to help him out as much as we can, and I'm sure whatever he does will be very helpful to everybody involved in the community.
Now, here's an idea for you. Why don't we get both him and Trey on?
So that's the real catch. I think what you'll see is once we can get everything sort of in that flow with these guys, because they're now Forrest is a year behind Trey in regards to his retirement. So he's probably got a few more things he's got to do on a honey-do list somewhere.
Oh, he's got to get the grill ready.
A couple of vacations here and there. You never know what it's going to be. So I'm sure he's got a few things. But yes, we'll definitely have him on, and we'll get the two of them on together, and that'll be a heck of a lot of fun. Once again, Douglas Jeep is our home for the 941 Sports Zone, and thanks to them for being sponsors as always, and Truly Nolan being our sponsor for our What's Bugging Me section of our show.
One thing about Douglas, just because I'm sitting here. Funny enough, I actually bought my first car that I financed.
Okay.
Here. It was a Subaru STI. Really awesome salesman. I don't remember his name. But as a kid, financing a car, that's scary territory.
Oh, yeah.
And, they were so helpful the whole way through it. They made it actually feel kind of like the baby steps to getting a house. Like, all right, you sign here. No, this is what it means,
This is what you want. This is what you don't want.
They're a supporter of the local high school here. So, it's just a good place to get a car.
No, it's very comfortable environment. Everybody here really embraces what we do, which is kind of cool. We kind of barge in on a Monday, make them stay late.
Hey, but they got the table ready for us. They take care of us.
No doubt, they definitely do that. So, what we'll do real quick is we'll take a break right here. That way, we can do a full run through our questions. Get plenty of chances to answer them and give them their due. Some might be one word answers. Some might be a long time answer, so we'll see how that all works.
All right.
With that, we'll take a break, come back here to Douglas Jeep, and do the Ask Johnny segment of our show tonight.
Let's get ready to ask Johnny.
Let's do it. With that, we'll see you back here shortly.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
Sports Zone podcast, and I put my glasses on so I look smarter, or I don't know, maybe I could read more than likely anything else, but so that when you ask me questions, I look sort of like somebody who, might know a little more than maybe a guy who didn't wear glasses. I don't know.
Hey, if you've been watching the show anything more than one episode, you know that you got the answers. So.
We'll hope so. So with that, we'll let Francis start asking the questions, and I'll see if I can answer them up to each person's expectations, let's say.
Okay. Alrighty. It's time to start asking Johnny. So, question number 1, Glenn from PV.
Just you can leave it at PV.
Okay. So from Glenn. Does competitive balance in college football come down to keeping in-state talent home for the state of Florida? In other words, does an improved UF, FSU, and Miami impact the entire national landscape?
Glenn's a college football junkie. Okay. And he knows a lot about college football. And what he's really asking is that what we've seen over the last few years, maybe even 10 years or longer, is that the Power 3 schools in the state of Florida, Florida State, and Miami, haven't been in the national landscape. They haven't actually been competitive when it came to national championships and all those different things. While this was happening, The rest of the country, some of the other schools that are making their way or doing well, I should say, are getting a lot of players from the state of Florida, high school players from the state of Florida. So the idea is that if Florida closed in things a little bit and started really attacking the local or the statewide talent in Florida, would this somehow not only bolster them up and let the other teams start going down because they weren't getting those same players? And the answer is yes, because when those teams are good, they win the state. They win the recruiting battle in the state of Florida, and both UF and FSU and Miami in particular. Miami just recruited the city of Miami, and they were always really good. So it is definitely enough talent, and I think yes, it does affect the national landscape when you're able to keep a lot of those players in the state of Florida. So my answer to Glenn is yes. I think that if they do it, and which is hopefully they're all on the rise to do that, it will definitely have an effect, and we'll start to see those schools playing for championships.
Okay. Next question here, and this one might be a little bit of a personal one.
Yeah,
for
this
you.
is right at me.
This is from JR Sarasota. So, do the Jets need to find quarterback help elsewhere or stick with Zach Wilson?
And then there's a second part to that too. And
Okay.
I said, it's end.
And or will OC Nathaniel Hackett hamstring them by not adapting to suit whatever strengths they have on offense?
And that was from Anonymous, that one was. So basically, do the Jets need to find a quarterback elsewhere? Yes. And no. So what do I mean? I think that Zach Wilson should be the starter, okay, moving for the time being. I think they do need to get quarterback help. And if things start to get where Zach Wilson is sort of showing those tendencies to not be the guy they hope he could be, where he makes a lot of mistakes, then having somebody ready, a veteran behind him, would be a really good thing. So I think yes, they need to go out and get help. I think they need to find somebody who's got some league help, a league experience, and then somebody who can come in and get in there and replace Zach Wilson if there's something that goes wrong. Now remember, Zach Wilson can also get hurt, just like Aaron Rodgers got hurt.
Yeah.
So that's another reason as well. The second part of that particular questions there about Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett was brought in to work with Aaron Rodgers. They're friends. They worked at another school. They worked at another team together with the Packers, and he was brought in to kind of run an offense that suited Aaron Rodgers. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to suit Zach Wilson today. Does he go ahead and adapt?
I mean, I would think you don't have any other choice.
Well, so the thing
It's an
about this,
adapting
Francis,
game.
is this. While you'd like to think that's the case, it's not so easy to do because you've already sort of installed for the last so many months or 6 months an offense that really sort of is predicated on, a few things Aaron could do that maybe other guys can't do. Where, for example, would be they call a play at the line, in the huddle, and Aaron has been around a long time. He can read the field, and he can say, "Oh, this is not going to work," and he checks into or changes into a running play, and it works. Is Zach a good enough quarterback at this point from that perspective to do it? We don't know. I would say he's probably not as good as Aaron Rodgers since he doesn't have the experience that Aaron Rodgers has. So that would be the issue where maybe Nathaniel Hackett can't make it adapt. I would hope that he does, but we'll see.
And my little follow-up to that, because I'm kind of curious. I mean, we're right in the beginning, starting off here.
Yes.
What, on a national level, I mean, what's like a time frame that you'd be looking at as the team, like maybe let a game or two go by, see how things float, or do they do a lot of the stuff in practice?
So what I would say to you is going to happen with the Jets is they're probably going to give Zach Wilson a 6-week audition, 6 or 8 week audition, because it's going to, and of course, if they don't want to go ahead and lose 6 games in a row while he's auditioning, but I think that's what they're looking at and saying, let's see where we're at. We can get to the playoffs. We can do, if there's improvement, if he's showing decision-making improvement, if he seems more comfortable in the pocket throwing the football, if he seems like he's sort of maturing at a rate that leads you to believe that you can win better or win more down the road, then you stick with him. If not, and it looks like just an absolute then you have to say, well, there's a guy sitting on the bench. Let's give him a chance and see what he can do. This is sort of what happened to the Jets last year in 2022. Zach Wilson was the starter and did very well for a few games, and then struggled, and they got replaced, and they sort of limped to the end. Hoping that doesn't happen because there's a lot of talent on the team, but that would be something that could happen, and I think that they'll probably have some sort of time limit as to how long before they make the decision about if it's a failure or a success.
Okay. On to question number 3 here from Tony and Tom in San Francisco.
Tony and Tom will be in a few places today, so you'll see that with the questions.
Okay. So this one hits home too. In regards to Venice Indian football, after reviewing the performance of the first 4 games, are you confident that the team will be peaking in time for a deep playoff run? And do you think the quarterback shuttle system has been successful so far? And would you eventually commit to one starter as the season progresses?
As far as reviewing performance and peaking for the playoffs, I do feel comfortable with that in regards to Venice football. The first 3 games, the first 4 games, as Tony and Tom are implying or talking about, there was that include the kickoff classic, and those games are always meant to be a very, very tough challenge. And as we can see by the record, we were a very tough challenge. Peaking towards the playoff run, you have to sort of be able to you have to look at the team and say, is it gelling from from on the field stuff, gelling off the field? Are you seeing the progression of the quarterback situation? Are you seeing where the quarterback, if it's Jaden, is he progressing in a manner that you feel comfortable with him moving forward, or is Ryan showing some other signs? So they got to figure that stuff out as well. But I think that the way things are going, and we'll know more in the next week or two as they progress, I think they are heading towards a peak situation that gets you started really well and moving forward through the playoffs. That's what you want. So I would say that yes to those. And as far as the quarterback shuttle system is concerned, I think there's always going to be plays in the playbook for both quarterbacks. I think in as long as it's not something that is forced, and long as it's not something that is that's done and takes away from momentum and or flow of a game, I think it has its place, because there's different skill sets from the two players we're talking about, and they can utilize those 2 skill sets in situations.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even as far as my input goes, has nothing really to do with player performance or anything crazy, but just watching Venice play for so many years now. Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago when they won states, it was early in the season and we weren't doing the best.
Right.
And I was watching it through the computer screens and all the cameras. I'm like, man, I was getting disappointed. I'm like, this ain't going good. And sure enough, they turn the corner, they do good. I mean, so that taught me then there not to maybe judge stuff right out the get-go. So.
And it's like anything else. Like anything you start, you start early in the morning for work. You're trying to get your wits together, and you've prepped from the day before, but all of a sudden, you kind of get a little distracted, or something gets in your way, and you don't put the camera you need in the trunk. Right.
It's happened.
Right. You got to go back and get it. Right. Well, that slows you down, and so those things are, they're not much different than a football field. You go out there and you get everything planned, the plan's in place. You start going down the road, run 1 or 2 first downs, and then all of a sudden a holding penalty or something like that happens, and it sort of gets you off track. Those are simple analogies, but that's what really happens sometimes. And sometimes you get where the other guy tries to make up for a mistake that he may be made and does something silly, and then the other guy tries a little too hard. And so sometimes when you lose the flow of things and you don't have that, it can definitely kind of mess you up a little bit.
All right, on to question number 4 from Molly, Mission Valley.
Yeah, that's right.
So, do you believe, in fact, that Travis Kelsey is dating Taylor Swift?
I do.
I don't know who. Oh, I know who Taylor Swift is, but I don't know anything.
So Travis
about
Kelsey
that,
is a tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. He does a lot of commercials right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He does the one where the one guy comes in and the one football player knocks the TV off the thing, and he asks, "What do you have? What do you have when a guy's wearing face paint and he doesn't have the game on?" He says, "What do you call him?" He says, "A clown." It's kind of funny. He's got a good sense of humor, very well known guy, and rumor has it that he was in the same place that Taylor was supposed to be. That there were some sort of social media flirtations going back and forth here and there. So I will say yes. I would say that there's probably a courtship at this point, and especially when TMZ's on it.
Courtship. That's a fancy word.
Old school. Yeah. But no, I think TMZ was on it, and they were kind of digging it. And I think I think they're both single, so, and about the same age. So I think yes, Molly. I think that Taylor and Travis are maybe in a little bit of a startup relationship.
There we go. On to number 5.
And by the way, when they break up, it'll be a hell of a song. It always is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. From I believe this is our Larry Shannon.
No, it's actually Larry Sandberg, and I'll mention him too because Larry, Larry is actually going to be my color analyst this week.
Okay.
For the live stream. So Larry's prepping.
Okay. And he's Mission Valley.
Mission Valley also.
All right. So should the NFL outlaw AstroTurf?
While I would love for that to. Okay, my opinion, yes. I think AstroTurf is while it had its time, I think nowadays there's too many options that that natural grass would be a better way to go. I actually found out just this not too long ago that there are soccer players. Now, we're talking like the soccer players, Ronaldo, Messi, those big name kind of guys. See, I went worldwide on that, right, Nessie? Soccer, where they actually have a clause in their contracts, they will not play on artificial turf. So, like, let's say they were coming over to play at what's called a friendly against, they're going to play against a U.S. team, and it was artificial turf. If you're going to pay to see Messi play, guess what? He's not playing on artificial turf.
So I need a little bit of some insight here,
Sure.
Because we've been trying to get our field turfed for so long. I always assumed that turf was the better way to go. So what's the differences here?
It's a maintenance issue. Okay. So it's complete maintenance and money issue. A lot of places, in high school is somewhat of an example of all this. You have a field in a high school field that gets multiple usage. You've got soccer, lacrosse, both boys and girls. You've got football. You've got all these other things that happen on the field. The field is always being used in some way. So it gets beat up. Not to mention the fact that we get enormous amounts of rain, and sometimes it's flooded and it gets rutted up and gets really banged up. And it happens on all fields. It's something that can happen anywhere and anytime. However, you see some of the turf, and I'm talking about NFL. The money is there.
Yeah.
The maintenance of it shouldn't be a problem. Over in Europe, where they have these situations, there is a stadium or stadiums that what they do is when they play soccer on the field, it's grass. And then when they have a concert or something else in that stadium, they have a artificial turf field they put right over the top of it. So they protect the grass by putting an artificial turf field over it for those multi-purpose situations. Now, I'm sure it's a lot of money, but the idea that the NFL couldn't do it only comes down to dollars and cents. Now go back to the high school scenario. Our field, and I say our by saying Venice football's field, is unbelievably immaculate compared to 95% of the other fields out there as far as grass fields are concerned.
Yeah, those groundskeepers, they do a good job.
Unbelievable job. That grass has been, how it's maintained, it's just unbelievable. But from a maintenance perspective, after the initial cost put out there, the field won't require, as it won't get the wear and tear as much. So there's a lot to be said about that, and I think that it's from a practicality perspective, it does make sense. And obviously, when you're going to get something, you're like, all right, let's get it going and get it on there, and we'll see what we get. It. I think it's it'll do well for high school, but you're asking me about the NFL, Larry is, and I think the NFL could get rid of it and with no problem handle having grass. And again, there's the Arizona Cardinals out there in Glendale. They have their field, their indoor grass field is on tracks, and they just pull it out and let it sit in the sun and water it, and then they put it in for the game.
That's funny.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna need to look that up.
There's ways to do it. So that's what I'm saying. I think if the NFL really put a mandate in, I think it would happen very easily.
And I was kind of thinking as we were talking about. I mean, I wouldn't know, but like, I wonder if on an ESPN level, if it helps them at all. Like, it's like a constant that they know the grass will always look like this, and it'll be like this.
I think there's a little bit of all that. Yeah, I think
easier,
there could be.
I mean, when they come to Venice, they put the lines in the field, no problem.
I got to remember some schools. I mean, talking about college, I'll go back to college too. You're talking about how high school has a budget issue. So do some schools. You know, some colleges. It's not
some are
easy.
just in the millions and some are in the thousands.
Right. It's not that easy to do. And weather is a big issue as well. So, I mean, you're playing football in a part of the year where it's cold and snowing and that kind of thing. So there are some issues for sure. But I will tell you that from the perspective of player safety, and I just think the overall the way the game should be played, I think it should be real grass.
Alrighty, from Jamie in Sarasota. Is conference realignment in college football good for the game?
It's a great question because there's so many. There's the get off my lawn guy who in myself that's like, oh no, it's got to be the old way. All the rivalries, everything has to be the same. How do you have one school that's in Washington be in the same conference as a team in Pennsylvania? You know, it doesn't seem like there's really some natural rivalry there. However, the idea that where things are headed with college football in particular, that they are going to have an alignment where you're going to have a playoff system like the NFL has. So the NFL has 32 teams, and they're divided 16 and 16, 4 teams in each division. They do align them in a way that has the teams from the East and the North and the South and the West. But in this case, they're going to have 4 conferences that are going to be a little jumbled up in regards to maybe the geographics of some of the schools. But ultimately, that'll be the same system. So you're going to have 4 entities crowning champions, putting their teams into a playoff system. It'll be regionally put together, and I think it'll end up working out for the best. So while I am not a proponent of sort of pulling apart the old school way of doing things, the art of what it was done before, I think this inevitably will lead to a much, I won't say the product on the field will be better, but the product, there'll be no, I wonder if we're as good as this guy, or it won't be a beauty pageant. It'll be an actual, you'll get there because you deserve to get there. And I think any truest of sports wants it to be settled on the field, not in some imaginary, in somebody's mind kind of thing. So I think that's where it'll end up being the best situation.
Definitely. All right, from Glenn PV. I know we already went over that one.
Yeah, but so Glenn is actually somebody I work with, and it's a mobile home park. PV.
Oh, gotcha.
Polynesian Village.
Gotcha.
Hi, Polynesian Village.
So, can a Pac-12 team contend for a title in 2023? If so, who has the best chance?
Best chance, USC, University of Southern California. And yes, I think they can contend for a title because right now, there's going to be a lot of questions coming up here shortly about Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffalo football program. Deion Sanders has stolen the headlines from everybody in regards to college football for the first 3 weeks of college football. With that, they're a Pac-12 team. There's enough good teams in the Pac-12, which with Colorado being added to that situation because they were a terrible team last year, and enough sort of light that's being shown on the Pac-12 because of this Deion Sanders Colorado Buffalo situation that now they won't be playing in obscurity at 10 o'clock at night out west. A lot of what happens is there's the East Coast bias in college football, Francis. So what happens is you have the East Coast teams playing at noon, 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You have the Pac-12 teams where a majority of their games are played at 7 o'clock in the evening, which is 10 o'clock at night out east. So people are sort of have made their minds up. They're getting inundated with highlights and everything of those teams in the East, while the teams out west are just sort of like, you don't even know their score. If you read the newspaper back in the day, you have to wait till Monday to see the scores. So that's what happens. But I think the light being cast by the Colorado Buffalo program and the fact that there are at least 4 really, really good Pac-12 teams outside of USC. You've got Oregon, you got Washington. Oregon State is very good. You can count UCLA and now Colorado as well. I think that a team can definitely have a chance to win a championship from the Pac-12.
Okay. Next one from Chris from Mayaca City. Why is Coach Prime so successful as a coach right now?
And there we go with Coach Prime. Why is he so successful? Because he is the perfect guy in this NIL transfer portal system that we have in place in college football. NIL being obviously the money being paid to these kids, and the transfer portal being that, hey, I'm not happy. Francis, you're my coach. I know you recruited me, but you didn't play me enough last year, so I'm going to try to go someplace else. And Dion is he is the guy. He's the showman. He's always been a showman, and he knows exactly what these kids are looking for and what they're expecting. He doesn't make false promises. At least at this point, I don't think he does it. So he is the right guy at the right time. If his style of coaching, if he tried to do it 10 years ago, he'd probably fall flat on his face. And the fact of the matter that he can take a 1-11 team from last year, Colorado, and make them relevant in 3 weeks is unbelievable. Yeah. So Chris, he is the guy because he's successful because he's the right guy at the right time. Now, does he stick? I think one of the questions coming up might be that. We'll see. We'll have to see about that.
Alrighty. Next from Mickey from Mission Valley. There has never been more first player than Dion. How will he be able to maintain a do as I say, not as I do team first attitude?
Okay. So Dion was always prime time. Dion high stepped it in the end zone. Dion, he wore the bling. He did he always was there, always surrounded by the it guys, in the rap world and everything else. He just always had that way about him. Very, very, an unbelievably good marketer. Did well on TV because he marketed himself well. Did all these different things. So, but I think what comes of it is that, is it what you say or what you do? And this is where the relevance comes in. Primetime Dion, he does a lot of talking, but he backs it up. Always has. He'll call his shot, and then he'll do it. Like back in the day when Dion was coming out of college, the combine, which is where they go to do their, they show how fast they can run and how they can do these little drills and everything else. Dion didn't show up for the whole thing. And folklore has it that Dion showed up in a limo when it was his for the 40, got out of the limo in a pair of running shoes and a pair of shorts, ran 140, went down ran it once and ran right out the building and left, and put up a number that was insane fast. And so he was putting on a show, but he backed it up. It's hard to say this guy's being a fool or acting silly when he runs the fastest time out of a limo. He's legit. So I think that's where it comes down to, where yes, it is a lot about Dion, a lot about him and what he's doing. We're talking about him right now, but I think the kids look at it and say, he talks a lot, but man, he's doing it. And if he can show me that way to do it, not only am I going to be successful on the football field, but I'll probably be getting myself some nice, Tostitos commercials and whatever else is out there. Yeah, so he definitely would be the guy.
And I mean, even along with that, like outside of sports, I mean, there's always a time and a place to act accordingly in those different ways. I mean, definitely you want to be able to walk the walk, but even, just building confidence in people. Like,
right.
You lose a game, but you come out and you're like, I'm still the best. Your fans believe in you a little bit more.
And I think there is a fine line between being confident and arrogant.
Yes.
And I think if you learn how to work that line, you're going to be successful.
Who was that one football player? They made a documentary about him. He got in a lot of trouble. He was always partying and stuff.
Well, it could be a lot of them.
Yeah, I guess that could be a lot of them. So,
yeah, but you're right. But there's some guys are just going to be that way. I mean, live hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. That's the first company I worked for in business. That was their motto: work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
So I mean, you had to be able to keep up, and they expected you to do it at work if you can do it. That was sort of that kind of mentality was ingrained in you a little bit. So we'll see.
Well, we got another one here from Mickey from Mission Valley. What effect do you think shortening the preseason has had on injuries and early poor performances? I think it has had everything to do with it in a lot of cases. I'll use one in particular. We were talking about Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers earlier. Aaron Rodgers had a calf injury. It was a slight calf injury, whatever it was. Didn't play a lot. Now, he hasn't played in the preseason when he played for the Packers either. He's not a preseason player. He's pretty much tuned in. But I think a lot of times, it's like anything else. If you haven't really, done the dance step, so to speak, you're going to be a little off a little here and there. And I don't know if, and the older you get, Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old now.
does, you can stretch all you want and do it until you take that first swing or that first throw, whatever. You don't know what's going to be pulled or popped or whatever it may be. So I think on that case, I think it has a lot to do with it. And I think in other cases as well, we've seen really, really good players hold out for more money and then sign a contract right before the season starts so they don't miss any time, and then go out there within 2 games that pull a hamstring. So I think that's a lot to do with it as well. And as far as the early poor performances, you watch preseason games. They have 3 of them now, and you watch the majority of what's happening in preseason is an audition for the players who are, trying to make the roster. The guys who are the starters per se are not getting those live reps. They're doing it in practice. They're doing it in other places, and coaches and players seem to be okay with it. But I got to think there's, you're a little step behind here and there. So going back to the Zach Wilson situation, the 6 weeks, what I was talking about, the Jets can afford to lose some games, but as long as they're, again, it's on the uptick. There are a lot of teams that are doing the same thing. They're like, hey, we don't get our guys hurt. Maybe we don't look sharp in game 3 or game 4, and maybe we'll lose a game here or there. But as long as we're improving and everybody's healthy and we're into the season, that's what they're looking for. So I think that's part of it. But I think they do have an effect on what both things Mickey said.
Okay. I'm just curious again. Back to the Jets. Do you think it's almost better that happened as soon as it did?
For as much as I like to say, I got to see a guy play a full game, 100%, because now you have an opportunity. If it happened in week 4 or 5, oh my God, it would have been like, now what?
Yeah, then you got your methods set up and ready to go.
Yeah,
and it's gone.
And Zach Wilson had played a lot in the preseason, so that had a lot to do with that too. So yes.
All right. Well, this next one is anonymous, but we'll say it anyways.
Yes.
Does the new clock rule in college football of letting it run after first downs really speed up the game, or is it just allowing for more ads to be sold on TV? Has the new rule also affected Las Vegas and the spread on some of the games?
Yes and yes, meaning I will tell you that while they like to pretend that it's going to speed up the game, it's not. It's only adding to these 3-minute timeouts where they can have multiple commercials, everything. I've seen it twice this year in person, and I'm like, that guy with that sign is on the field an awful lot. And I'm not seeing me getting out of a college football game in anything less than 3.5 to 4 hours. So where the game gets sped up, it hasn't. As far as the other part of the question on the spread, has to, because now you're looking at the game itself. Okay, the on-field game is quicker, but that means there's less possessions, meaning less chances to score. So it has to affect the spread or the point totals or the over-unders, and all those different things have to be affected in some way, because now the game, while the actual whole game itself is taking longer or taking the same amount of time, the actual time of the game, like on the field, the players playing on the field, is shorter. So that's going to definitely have an effect on both. I don't like it. I think it makes the game itself, the interest of the game is college football has to be a little different than pro football. It's got to differentiate itself in some ways. That was the biggest one.
I was going to say, just because the question, I was literally thinking about this last night watching the game. I was watching the Dolphins and the Patriots. Mm-hmm. I don't remember there being that many commercials. There was a lot. Enough for me to think about it.
Well, the NFL has made it so that they have figured it out. Okay. Meaning their games go 3 hours.
Yeah.
It is timed and moved along in a certain way. There's only so many commercials. They take commercial breaks at a certain time. College football, they're doing things like all of a sudden a guy is injured or something happens and let's take a 5-minute timeout. And it didn't need it. They see the guy walk off the field, but they already committed to the timeout, and there they go. NFL will stick with things. They're much more regimented, so there's a little more free flow to that. So that's kind of how I see it. So yeah, I think that I think 100% anonymous is by saying there are more ads being sold on TV, definitely, and I think that's affect the spread.
All right, on to another one that is also anonymous. Do you think the prime effect is long-lasting or something that will taper out? He has had success at all his coaching stops along the way, but in this Colorado team, talent-laden or just lucky at this point?
So I don't think that, this going back to Deion Sanders, I don't think that it's a long-lasting situation. Only because I think he has bigger aspirations. I think he would like to get into the NFL as a coach, or get to a school that's got a little bit more flair to it. Let's say Colorado is a stepping stone for him, is what I think. So I don't think it'll last where he's at for a long time. I think eventually, like anything else, he'll hit a ceiling, and it'll start to taper out a little bit because right now we've only had seen him make it through success. We haven't seen him have to struggle through adversity. So we'll see how that goes. So I think, and he has had success along the way, but the previous couple stops and even the stops here, he's come in with a load of talent. So he's out-talented other teams at the different levels. When he gets to a certain level, everybody's got the same talent. Soon, and that's soon going to happen in Colorado as well. But when his real coaching chops are going to be when he is coaching a team that has less or equal to amount of talent, if he can make them good enough to beat the other team. That's where you can know if he's really the guy.
I mean, that sounds very valid. I wish I knew more about that subject to comment on it, but hopefully Anonymous got their answer. So this next one is from Bill in Bradenton, and he asked, are we seeing the beginning of the end of the Alabama dynasty? We got a head shake right there.
Yeah. And I think the answer is yes. Multiple reasons. First, Nick Saban, legend. He's getting to the age now where it's coming to a close, his career at some point in time. So I think that's one thing for sure. Secondarily, Alabama has always in the winning formula at all levels of football normally start with the quarterback and the coach, or the coach and the quarterback. In this case, the coach is still there, but we're not seeing the next quarterback, the next guy coming through at Alabama, which is where you're seeing them struggle a little bit. Not only to mention that, he's always hit home runs on replacing coaches off of his staff. He gets guys that have failed in other places and whatever, and brings them on, rehabs them, and he shoots them to other schools, and they do really well. It's sort of reaching a point where I'm not saying this guy or whatever, but there's an end run to eventually. There are no more guys you can sort of, rehab and do it, and they can do well for you. So I think you're looking at it from the perspective that they were in the championship game or around it forever, and now I think they're still while they were bumping their heads a little bit here and there. I think it might be the beginning of the end. I really do believe that. So Bill, I know why you asked. But I will tell you that, I feel like that's sort of where it's at. Hey, do you want to take a break real quick?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's take a break real quick. We're kind of at the halfway point. So we'll take a break, come back, finish up the Ask Johnny segment of our show tonight, and see what else they have to offer for me as far as questions concerned. Be back here at Douglas Jeep.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
We are back at the 941 Sports Zone podcast at Douglas Jeep, and soon to be talking about what's bugging me later on with Truly Nolan. We'll get that out there as well. But we're going to continue now with the second half of our Ask Johnny questions. And Francis, you can go ahead and start at, I guess, number 14 right there.
All right. This one is from Bucket. Urbandale and Auburndale and HOA President.
Yes, he's been a long-standing HOA president, and we want to make sure that got out there because he's it's quite the accomplishment. Like he'd be like a 10-term HOA president, I think, at this point.
That's wild. Yeah. Funny enough, I just shot a promotional thing for someone running for an HOA president the other day. There you go. So,
but
I'm sure it's a different one.
Well, you never know. Maybe he'll look for somebody soon.
All right. So, where do things stand with the Live Golf and PGA merger?
And when that question came up, I'm like, I can answer that question because John Peacock's not here, because he said if I ever talked about it, the game's going to walk out the door. So I can actually talk about it. It's kind of it's ever since the big announcement about the merger, they're going to kind of mend their fences and try to figure things out. It's sort of become like it's more like it's unraveling than it's sort of progressing. Some of the demands from the Live side came out and were like silly stuff that they could never have gotten from anybody, which kind of shows a little bit of arrogance on their part. But just as of recently, they made a deal, or they had to take a part out of the deal because Congress is involved now, because they're kind of saying they're not liking the idea that the Saudis can come in and buy up a whole sports league, so to speak. Yeah. So they got some issues with that. But they pushed on some stuff where they had said we're not going, since we're sort of looking to merge, we're not going to go after each other's players, meaning that the Live Golf guys are not going to try to go out and get more guys off the PGA Tour to play on their tour, and vice versa, trying to lure guys back or whatever else it was. Well, that doesn't work, because that's like collusion in a way. You can't say you're not going to. The free market is gone at that point. And so they said, no, you can't do that. That cannot be part of your agreement. You cannot say that you won't go back and, they can't be competition or whatever it would be. So that kind of got blown up a little bit, which could lead to some other, some issues. Now, all of a sudden, let's say some guy says, hey, Liv, since we're making friends with each other, how about throwing me $100 million a year, and I'll go out there and play for Liv for a little while in shorts till we fix this whole thing out. So that's kind of where I think they are right now. They're still trying to iron out all the different stuff. There's been some things from the PGA side with the players getting some more power back, not having all the negotiations being done by a few men in the organization, where the players have some say in it. So that's another big thing. My personal opinion, I think this merger is going to fall flat on its face. I think not that they won't figure something out, but the framework and how they've set it up right now is not going to stand. It's not going to make it. They're going to something or someone else, some other entity is going to get involved, and it's not going to be this easy little kumbaya, reconciliation. I think it's going to something that gets little nastier, and there's going to be some losers in the situation, unfortunately. I'm not talking about players. I'm talking about losers in regards to the hierarchy of the PGA. There's going to be guys that are going to get forced out, and then I think there's going to be more money brought in from other places. The money that the Saudis are offering the PGA Tour in order to kind of mend these fences is big money, but there's other people that have big money, and other corporations that have big money who could get involved. And if the right people get in the right rooms together, we could see some changes for sure. So right now, some things are sort of falling apart here and there, but they're still in that they're still trying to keep the merger going some way or another.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, I know a couple realtors that their whole life is basically golf, and I've seen them talking a lot about it lately. So. Oh
yeah, like I said, and even like another question, which is coming up next. Go ahead and answer that one. You'll see about what.
Yeah. So what is your stance on live golfers playing on the Ryder Cup team?
Okay, so that in particular is when I months ago when we were talking about this, totally against live, which I still am. I think they're not those players that went there. Obviously, they had their own reasons. That's their life to live. But in regards to what how I look at the game and how it should have been done and what they did, I think they destroyed it in a lot of ways. Live golfers, if they qualify to be on a Ryder Cup team, if they meet all the qualifications and do whatever they need to do as far as earning their way on there, I have no problem with it. Because that means that they're playing in tournaments, PGA tournaments, not live tournaments. They're playing in tournaments that they qualified for to play in years ago by winning the tournaments or whatever they did. And if they maintain their qualifications and they did what they need to do, then I don't have a problem with it because they earned it. And I wouldn't want to take anything away from somebody who earned it, even though he's making money somewhere else. If he earned it, then great. I think they should be there. Now, if to make up an entire team of live golfers because they were good at one point or that's the team you had before, but they don't earn it, I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that at all. So I say if you earn it, you're in. I can't stop that. But just to think that for some reason that because you were good or you are good and you're just didn't earn your way on, you have some right to be there. I'm not down with that at all.
All right. So next one is from Tom and Tony, Napa, California.
So that was Tom and Tony from San Francisco. They've also been, as in today, they were going to San Francisco from Napa on a plane. So there'll be some point in time where Tom and Tony's question will come from a plane.
Okay. So I was going to say, so did they ask you the one question earlier when they were there and then the next one
I'm just playing with them because they told me where they were. So what's the heck, right?
All right. Well, they were wondering, do you foresee using a 5-man defensive line versus certain team with a prolific rushing game to avoid giving up large chunks of yardage?
So this is Tom and Tony. Every question they're going to ask is going to be a Venice high school question.
Gotcha.
So this is really going down to where we played Armwood in our first game, I guess, and they ran the ball really well, a lot of yardage on the ground, and there was some point in time when we switched over to a 5-man defensive line. The answer to this, Tom and Tony, is I don't know, because in any situation, you're not going to throw yourself into a formation or something if just to do it because it may not work. You may not have the personnel to do that. You might say, "Oh, my 50th defensive lineman can't line up in that position. He's not able to or capable or whatever because either he hasn't done it before or he's a sophomore or we never know what the situation is." I know whatever adjustment needs to be made, it will be made, but I just don't know if that'll be the one that they make in a situation like that. Teams have tried a lot in the past to do, run the ball against us and keep our offense on the field, and that's football in a lot of ways. It's not anything that's relative just to Venice or anybody else for that matter. Teams want to win time of possession. They want possession. They want to run the ball. They want to keep you from getting the ball. It's all the same things you would think. So I would say I don't know if it warrants it and it's the best situation. I think anything will be done. So I guess a long way around it is no. I don't think that's going to be a definite that happens. It could though, but I don't think it will. I think it'll be depend on what is happening in that moment.
I'll leave that up to Peacock's playbook because that's way out of my.
That's that would. I don't know, and Coach Shannon being a defensive coordinator, he's going to do what's necessary. We know that. We know that for sure.
All right, next one. Like this one here. So, who does Dolphin head coach Mike McDaniel most resemble?
It's a tee-up question from Anonymous. Jason Potter, former track coach, Venice High School.
I didn't even think about it until you said it, but yes, he does, like to a T.
So if anybody knows Jason, tell him to watch the podcast, or if he hasn't watched it yet, and then we'll tell him he's probably already heard it already. But by the way, Mike McDaniel is this is for you now because you got your Dolphins stuff on. He has done an amazing job with the Dolphins.
Yes,
he is and when you see him, he doesn't come across as the prototypical football coach. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he is, and he sort of has a different style than you would maybe see other coaches see, as far as his clothing and everything else. But the idea is that he has been very innovative with his offense, and he has done something in regards to the Dolphins in particular, where he has made them, as of this moment, they're probably the best offense in the NFL. And that in this NFL, this day and age, that's huge because it's an era where points matter a lot. Lots of points. You're going to win games by scoring in the 30s, where back in the old days it was about playing defense and scoring less points. Now it's about scoring more points. And so he's doing a great job. I would say that his only concern would be whether or not he can keep his quarterback upright. And so far, Tua has only been hit 3 times in 2 games. Only hit 3 times. We haven't seen how his jiu-jitsu has worked for him yet in regards to how he can fall properly. But
I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm just not gonna.
Right. let me ramble about it.
But yeah. All right, on to DN Lakewood Ranch.
Yep.
Don't know the name there, but are the Bucks and Baker Mayfield for real?
No.
What are we talking about here?
Well, because they're 2-0, and I don't think they're for real. They played the Bears, which is an awful team. It's like they're just not playing very well right now. Quarterback is all jacked up. They're not playing real well. And then and really it wasn't something that they didn't overwhelm the Bears, let's just say. A win on the road against Minnesota is admirable. It's a good deal. But the Vikings are, again, an 0-2 team. They're not really quite there yet. So I don't think they're for real. I think that the thing about the Buccaneers is that if they can if they win some games and win the right game in the division, because the division is the worst in football, that they can actually get into the playoffs. I just don't think they're for real. That if you're for real means like somebody who's, competitive against everybody, not winning every game or anything like that. Don't be wrong. But I don't think they are for real. I don't see it.
There we go. I mean, I get people ask me all the time because they know that I don't care a whole lot about
Right.
following this stuff. But they're like, well, why aren't you a Bucks fan? I'm like, I literally just picked the color. I like blue,
Well, you could also say, my family's been in Florida for 40, 50 some years, and we were Dolphin fans from the beginning.
I could say that, but I mean,
Because I have friends who say that because they tell me, trust me, they came down here and the Dolphins were the team for the Bucks. Bucks started in '76, so my friends were born in 1965, so they are Dolphin fans.
in all honesty, I root for all the Florida teams.
Well, there you go.
So that's my stance.
There you go.
And on to another one from DNN Lakewood Ranch. Are the Bengals and Joe Burrow old news?
I wouldn't say they're old news. I think they're there are times in football where, or I'll use it in any sport, when you have a run where you make it to the playoffs and you sort of your journey has been an uphill battle to success and you've maintained a little bit, where there's got to be a dip where just the idea that you've been beaten up for so many extra games every year in the playoffs, there's a wearing down process. I think the Bengals are trying to overcome that wearing out process. So I think that while they've gone 0-2 to start the season off in a pretty competitive division in the AFC, I don't think they're old news. I just think that they're just the guy who's a little beat up. I'll use an analogy, I'll use a golf analogy. Some guys are golfers and they shoot a certain score and that they're good. That's a good score they shoot. But every once in a while something's not right. Listen, the shoulder doesn't feel good. Your back's bothering you a little bit. And you
have
get
a bad
into a
day.
rut and you just start shooting higher scores. I think I think all those guys are still the same guys. I just think they're not over it yet, and we'll see. I could re-answer that question 6 weeks from now, and I might have a different answer. But I think right now they're not old news. They're just kind of figuring out how to get off that wear and tear in their bodies.
Yeah, I mean we're still right in the beginning.
We're early, yes.
All right, from FP in Venice, what is a worse foul or penalty? An intentional late hit or trying to poke someone in the eye?
Okay, so this is a good question for everybody, right? So we'll ask Josh. Josh is over there behind the camera. Poking the eye or hitting somebody on purpose and trying to hurt him?
The second one.
A poke in the eye?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean my vision. I mean I value that very much. So, but I would think, aren't they both intentional? How can you poke someone in the eye and it not be intentional?
Well, but the late hit. Okay, the late hit was this goes back to watching the Colorado Buffaloes again against Colorado State. There was a player for Colorado State who the guy caught the ball or dropped the ball, I should say, and the guy just waited for him, and it was a good 2 or 3 steps, and he just leveled him, hit him square in the chest. I mean, and the guy he hit was their best player. Ooh. And he came back in for a little bit, and then he left, and now he's out for 3 weeks. And they were saying earlier today on sports radio that they had said, like, is it fair? Should that guy now be suspended? So he got 15-yard penalty, didn't get thrown out of the game or nothing, but now he took out their best player for 3 games, and the 3 games that are going to be some of the harder games they play. So that's the ramification of that. Now, as far as poking someone in the eye, I mean, when somebody's doing that, like putting your finger in and trying to do something, that's sort of, to me, while they both have, there's some character issues in both cases. I think that the guy hitting the guy in the back in the intentional hit is sort of a heat of the moment in the game thing.
Yeah.
And poking somebody in the eye is sort of like there's different in your intentions and your demeanor are a little different than heat of the moment.
Yeah, it's like something you gotta dwell on and think about.
So poke in the eye is my worst of the two as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you risk a much worse injury. Like,
Yes.
That's just not something to mess around with.
Yes.
Don't go poking people in the eyes. All right, next one, anonymous. Do you see at the high school level a lack of football knowledge and awareness on the playing field more recently? Could it be that kids these days don't watch football leisurely like their predecessors? I think I know who asked this question.
You think you do, right?
I think I do.
So, but the idea, so the answer is yes. There is a little bit less of a knowledge of the game. I use the idea that I went to the Florida Tennessee game this weekend on a college campus. Big game. You're in and around different age levels and whatnot, and you just run across each other. There's not a lot of nuts and bolts football talk going around.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more like, we're better. And like, my question would be, well, how do you think that? And I'm not sure you're going to get an answer. You know what I mean? Do I need one? No, I don't. But the idea is I don't see it as much. They play the game, but I don't know if they are students of the game, or that the game means, that they play the game and they leave the practice field and run home to watch the Monday night game.
Right.
I don't know if that happens. I don't know if it's there or not. And there was even talk about the idea that someday these 95,000 seat stadiums and these college campuses and whatnot may not have the 95,000 people there to go see it. Now there's a waiting list for tickets, but that maybe at some point in time the game itself becomes just another. It's a video game.
That just blows my mind, because I was the type of kid in high school that I didn't play team sports. I mean, I rode bikes and stuff, but I was never involved in any of that. And I mean, even coming around to now, just being around football makes me want to just watch a game.
Right.
So to think of like kids being in the game and then not even wanting to watch it, that just blows my mind.
Well, the other thing is this. So what happens at some point in time, there's sort of I don't know how to put it, but people convalesce, let's say, around a sporting event. They're gonna go, let's go watch, hey, what are we doing this weekend? I don't know, come on over and watch the ball game and have a barbecue.
Yeah.
Okay. Just becomes part of the. So I think the kids that are not sort of in love with the game and are not maybe not as adamantly involved in it will eventually turn to the game as a socialization thing, and then it'll pick up again. But it doesn't help at this level that like somebody doesn't understand like the nuances of a game. You see certain situations. This is not a Venice thing, by the way. This is just in general, where all of a sudden you see somebody, you're like, hey, it's third down and you got no timeout stuff and you can't do this and can't do that. Those are things that, that if you play the game, you should know automatically. And I think a lot of times some of the nuances of the game, little tweaky things here and there that in the game, in guard the game, they don't know as well or aren't as versed at it. They need to be reminded of certain things, as opposed to saying, why would you even say it to me? I know exactly what to do. I think that's a little bit of what we're talking about. And I think because they do go home and they, a lot of studying going on with school, and there's a lot of things there's a lot more pressure to be in school than was before. And there's a lot more other things that can take your mind off it. Because, we have talked about how generationally we deal in things in short snippets and 5-minute stuff. Yep. Football game's a 3.5 hour commitment. And
I
know, want to do it.
I know. I mean, it's hard for me to sit down that long time. Usually I got to get up, do something, pause,
Yeah, it's definitely different. Definitely different.
All right. On to next one from Tom and Tony on a plane, funny enough. So, will this be the last year for grass at Powell Davis Stadium? Is it possible to update the scoreboard with a new panel to provide more information?
Tom and Tony, I know they shouldn't be on a plane anymore, but no and no. Okay, so the no for the grass at Powell Davis is that we will be getting our new AstroTurf field in the January of 24 or 5, January 25.
So after next year.
Yeah, because it had to do with some things that were regarding graduation and other things that would have been interrupted. So they wanted to. So they're going to plan for that. And as far as the scoreboard's concerned, the size of the scoreboard is really which is making the panel change kind of hard. I do know that there was some talk, and I don't want to put anything out there that's not true, but let's just say it's what I might have heard. That there'll be a new scoreboard at some point in time that'll be like the old scoreboard used to be in the west end zone of Venice High School, where it'll be a bigger scoreboard with the timeouts and the first and everything that you saw before, and a real big scoreboard. It'll be one of those will be back up in lieu of the jumbotron scoreboard.
Yeah, and I mean,
but not next year.
Even the replacement one they put in for now is way better than what we had.
Yes.
I mean, it's nice actually seeing a scoreboard that lights up all the numbers.
Yes, yes. And listen, it's one of those things that you really take for granted.
Yeah.
Because go to a football game anywhere, and you start sitting there, you're looking at the scoreboard, looking for the 40-second clock, and things like that you take it for granted when you don't have a good one.
Now I will say on my end, I would love if they could somehow put the play clock on the scoreboard too, because that would make my job a whole lot easier.
Now I will tell you this: in some instances where you go that it's always close but adjacent to it, but at the same eye level. So I think that's what you'd really want to have.
Yeah, we got them in
Down
the field
low.
there. But,
Down low.
I mean, no biggie. All right, on to next one with GB from Pinebrook. Has Dan Campbell done the best job of rejuvenating a terrible franchise and fan base into being somewhat relevant?
I think I don't know. I'm going to say he's done the best job, but I think he's done an amazing job. Best means like he's the best at it. It's still out there because they're 2 games into this season after a very good end of last season, and the team we're talking about is the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
The Detroit Lions are a struggling franchise for years.
Yep.
And so he's done a great job of just instilling some hope for sure. But has he done the best job as from the rejuvenating part of it? Question mark at this point. I don't know how far he needs a little more time to prove it to me at this point.
All right, next one.
And the last one, by the way.
Yeah, also a last one here from a GB from Pinebrook. What happens to Brian Kelly's Louisiana accent?
Well,
what happened to
Brian Kelly was the Notre Dame coach.
Okay.
And he went to LSU, and somehow he went from a normal speaking human being to a guy who had a twangy Cajun accent at his press conferences.
I love that. I'm actually Cajun. So
GB, here's the answer. What happened to it is that he forgot to keep doing the fake accent, or his wife or somebody told him, get rid of that stupid ass accent you're doing right now, and because you're making you look like a fool. And that's what happened to him. So it was never going to, when Madonna got the British accent, that's sort of the comparison. I mean, maybe she picked it up. I don't know. But if Brian Kelly was in Louisiana for 10 years and had picked up a little Cajun accent, I believe it. 10 minutes, never going to happen. Trying too hard to fit in with the locals, and it didn't. It fell flat.
I mean, I'm a Englewood local here, so I mean, I've just met a ton of kids over the years that just fake this country accent, and then they get anxious or something or angry, and you hear their real voice come out, and it's like, what are you doing, man?
I prefer somebody who, if authentic, give me any accent, and that's fine. Don't give me one that doesn't, It's a derivative of some other deal there. So
all right, well that concludes the Ask Johnny segment. So
all right,
hopefully they all got their answers.
So here's what we'll promise. Okay, at some point in time, depending on how that we progress with our new digs and everything else that's going to happen with us, we will start either doing some in-house stuff, or periodically we'll put out there the week before, like, hey, it's time to ask some questions, and we'll put it out there maybe on the email, as opposed to texting, whatever. We'll put it on our email account. You can email us some questions, and we'll pick through the ones that kind of are more relevant than others, and that we can put on the air.
And hope just in case I'm here next time, hopefully some I know a little better. So.
Well, you're fine. Listen, that was great. As a moderator, perfect. No doubt about it.
Try our best here.
And you do now. So now things that you're going to want to be sit over here with me and not do the video, and how that goes. No, you say no. All right. With that, we'll take our final break of the night. Come back so I can do my What's Bugging Me, unless you want to join in on something.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, he's in too. Great.
That's why I've been on here the whole time.
Oh, wait for the What's Bugging Me. All right, so What's Bugging Me, and there's maybe a prediction or two back here from Douglas Jeep in a few minutes.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup,
And a dealership that tackles the competition.
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice,
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
Here at the 941 Sports Zone podcast. And once again, thank you to Douglas Jeep, Greg Douglas, and his entire staff. What a great job they do, and have patience with us, and we're having fun, and they're having to wait around for us, and we do appreciate them doing that for us all the time.
They really are the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine doing this at
I
any
know
other
I know they're
place.
listening to us a little bit, so hopefully every once in a while they're like, what are those idiots over there saying now? So that's pretty cool. But we do appreciate everything they're doing. And now we got to give a big thank you to Truly Nolan, who sponsor our What's Bugging Me section. And with that, Francis Haynes, do you have a What's Bugging Me?
I do. So this one's kind of loose, kind of out there. I know a lot of I know a lot of people have had this same belief over the years. I mean, I don't know if technology is to blame or government or whatever. I notice a lot coming from kids that were in my graduating class, moving on, that went through the college system and stuff. I mean, a lot of them just end up really not knowing where they want to go in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that really bugs me because, I mean, we're kids and then we're just, boom, adults. And I feel like somebody failed along the way between the end of elementary school and the end of high school, kind of guiding kids what they're passionate about and what they want to do. I mean, there's a lot of variables. Some people are just lazy. Some people didn't know what they want to do. Some people don't have the finances. I feel like I don't have the answer, but something could be done, I would hope in the school system at least, to help bring kids where they are really passionate about. And then we wouldn't be dealing with this whole college debt issue and then kids not knowing what they want to do in life. It just bugs me.
Well, and listen, I'll be honest with you. That's a little bit too, is that no matter anything you do, however you do it, you should have some sort of passion for it.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to lead you to some, billion-dollar wealth. Doesn't mean a lot of different things, but the passion should be not only what you want to do, but the energy to find the path to it. That's the other thing. You have to be able. Somebody's got to push you, or you have to push yourself to be like, I'm going to keep trying hard and with a lot of enthusiasm to find my way. Okay, and again, that's the difference. I think a lot of times now the idea is that, and I'll go to the higher level. I'll go to college. Hey, go to college. I'm going to get my degree, and then I'm going to walk out with the degree, and I'm going to get because I have a degree, I'm going to get a $90,000 a year job, and it's going to be set up for me. No, when you leave college with that tool in the toolbox, a degree, you got to go out there and work as hard as anybody else does. And there's not going to be people throwing a ticker tape parade because you graduated. They're going to be like, no, you got to start at the bottom and work your way up. So there has to be realistic goals and a passion to not only get to where you want to be, but a passion to want to go take the path to get there. And that means a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I was very fortunate with where I went to high school here. My guidance counselors, they were really, really good towards me. And I saw it with other kids kind of like guiding me, like you're saying, towards that. I mean, a little bit of tough love, a little bit of help, but I just feel like there's a big lack of that nowadays, and it's just going to keep making more problems.
I think a lot of times too, and I'm not going to lump social media into this entirely, but everybody wants to go on Instagram and say like, hey, look at me, I'm off to my new job, I got my new car and my new boyfriend and my new this, my new that, or whatever it may be, and they don't want to say, hey, you know what, my first job, I got to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be tough, but it's going to get me somewhere. So sometimes a little bit of that, there's got to be a little optimistic realism.
Yes, 100%.
That's what you got to have. And if you have a passion for whatever you're doing, that passion will take you on a path to the success that you're deserving of. That's for sure.
Yeah, and if you really like what you do, I mean, you might not be rich and famous, but if you really like it, you'll at least be comfortable.
You'll know when you're successful when you wake up in the morning and you sleep well and you wake up happy. That's when you know you're successful.
So, John, what's bugging you?
It's simple. Everybody knows it. These questions, everybody's like, well, I know what he's going to say. Well, it is the truth. Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 plays into the damn game, the damn season on Monday night. New York Jets fan. So moved from New York when I was 13 years old. I loved all the New York teams. You know, of course you do. That's the teams you watched, right? But the only team I kept my fandom to was the New York Jets. It's cost me a lot of grief. Trust me, it cost me a lot of grief.
I was rooting for you too because I like Aaron Rodgers.
And rightfully so when I get a lot of grief when you really suck, okay? And that's fine. But come on, somebody in the cosmic world, can you give a guy a break? You finally do all the right stuff. You not only get that quarterback, but you get the guys around him that are going to make him. You actually have a legit chance to get the Super Bowl. I mean, legit chance.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 plays? Are you kidding me? I sat there. I mean, I sat there with. I don't know if it was like a smile or it was like a weird cry look on my face for 3 hours. But what the hell? I didn't know what to watch. And then, ironically enough, a game they probably wouldn't have won if Rodgers played. They win, and it's almost like it's almost worse than losing, because you're like, see how good we could have been. We pulled it out without this guy, and then you have that happen. So, what's bugging me has nothing. Nobody did anything to me. It's bugging me because give me a damn break every once in a while. Give me a chance. If I lost with Aaron Rodgers, great. I could live with it because I actually had the chance to win it. Whereas now, I mean, is there still a chance? Of course there is. Can Zach Wilson emerge and become a great player? Did we do something for the year? Can Aaron Rodgers, like they're saying today, giving me false hope, he might come back for the playoffs? He had some special voodoo magic surgery done. No, but it's just the fact that being a long-standing Jets fan and you finally get the hope that it sort of gets ripped right out of your heart. Yeah, 4 plays in is a tough one to swallow. So I'll get over it. I'll take the heat. I'll take the ribbings, the text messages about little things, but we'll see.
I know the feeling. Every time I've seen Tua get hurt, I'm like, oh, come on, why?
Well, you guys are actually. I would say the Dolphins have not been champions for a while either. So
it's hard.
It is, and a lot of teams too. But I mean, sometimes just the hope of it is is more than is good enough for a little while.
Well, we'll keep an eye on Zach. I'm sure he'll pull through.
Oh, well, I'll be watching Zach too. I'm sure I'll be ready to throw a brick through the TV in 4 games. So we'll see how that goes.
You want to go with your prediction first?
You go.
Mine. All right. All right. I don't know how exactly to word this. I'm gonna predict Dolphins do decent in playoffs.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so that's fine. And I'll say get the playoffs. I'm going to tell you right now, as of this moment, they're the best team in the AFC. Defense is good. Offense is fantastic. They are the best team at week 2. Let's see where they are week 5, 6, 7. But I think they are the best team in the AFC East right now. So that means a lot. Prediction for me, since we're on this prime Deion Sanders kick, Colorado will lose the next 2 games they play. They're going to play against Oregon, and they're going to play against USC, and they will lose both. I will say this, though, for all those gamblers out there, I would take Colorado and the points. I think they will take Colorado plus the number, and I think that'll be the winning bet there. That's just a little side bet, but the real prediction is they will lose the next 2 games. So for gamblers, on my other side.
For gamblers.
Yeah, all the gamblers out there. With that, thank you all for watching tonight. Francis, great job being the moderator.
Hey, I appreciate being
Stepped
on.
out from behind the camera, let Josh all by himself over there. Josh did a bang-up job.
Oh, he always does great.
Yeah, no doubt. And next week we'll have our guest. I won't say because I don't want to jinx it, but he said he was in next week, so we're good to go. So we'll be back to our normal format next week.
Sounds
good.
With
that, thank you for watching. I'm John Massoni for Francis Haynes. See you next time on the 941 Sports Zone. Have a good night.